Hello, this is Matthew Lim with Organizational Behavior and Management. This is the lesson 8 video reflection and analysis. So, for the first topic, defend the perspective that the first step in the five-step decision making model is the most important. So, the first step is the identifying or defining the problem. If you don't really define the problem or figure out what you're really trying to do, you're not really going to, uh, you know, be able to work out the problem or even go through the entire steps. So I'd say the best, it's most important because of that. And, if you are going through with the decision making without identifying the issue first, you're going to have probably problems. You might solve the wrong issue, or you might not even solve any issues if you're going to go through with the decision making. So, like, say, there's a situation with hiring. Maybe if you don't identify what's going on with hiring, maybe you aren't going to hire the right people or hire the right amount of people, or people who are actually, needed for the job. So yeah, if you're not really going through the first step of the five-step decision-making model, it's going to fall apart easily, especially with whatever you create or think of. And it's the cornerstone of what every decision should be, the identifying the issue. So the second topic, in what types of work situations would satisfying be appropriate? List at least three occupations or industries where satisfying would not be an appropriate strategy. So the type of situations that I would say are the best, because satisfying means that you're choosing the option that's the easy, not really easiest, but like the one that almost fits the bill, that can work at during this time. So I would say situations like that is maybe if you're really needing an employee right now to fill a spot, or if you just really need hires because maybe you had a lot of employees leave because of certain things, like maybe someone had an important employee left because of a sickness or death in the family, or they're moving. So you need to hire somebody right now because you're working on a project that's very vital. And you need people like all hands on deck. You need everyone. And if you don't have enough people, you're going to have to hire someone in the meantime. I would say also like maybe jobs that aren't very like heavy, like retail or grocery. Maybe jobs like that aren't really going to, or you're just going to have pick the next person that walks through the door and say, hey, you're hired. You don't really need much experience with this. You just need to stock shelves, or you need to just help with customers as best as you can. So yeah, just like jobs that don't really require much thinking with the hiring process. Just whoever is able to pick things up, deal with customers, just anybody. So three occupations that would be where satisfying would not be an appropriate strategy would probably be medical um, jobs. So like nurses, doctors, dentists, pharmacists, any of those really, because you want someone who is experienced or is qualified for the job, not someone who just walks through the door and says, I want to be a doctor. So you have to pick. It's probably satisfying wouldn't be the best option for you there, because yeah, you're in a world where you're dealing with people's lives. You're one small mistake could probably cost someone's life, or you know if you're dealing with someone who's inexperienced, you can't really just or you can't train them while they're working. You expect someone to, or a doctor to know what they're doing, or a nurse to know what they're doing. So you just gotta be prepared to do whatever you need to do when you're on that job. So a second occupation I'd say would probably be engineering, probably like any engineering in general. So like AT&T, you need engineers for that, or FPL. If people's powers go out because someone someone was hired and they don't really have much experience, or they're just new. Someone could mess something up. A wire could be too a wire or a breaker could blow out, and it's something because of that. And or maybe even NASA or SpaceX. You want engineers who are able to do their job well. You can't have someone just waltz in and say build a rocket, and they're just not going to do well. So yeah, because again, that's another kind of job that you'd be, especially rockets. You're playing with people's lives. There's astronauts who are trained to go up into space, and if one number or one equation or any like piece of machinery that's like faulty, you're basically going to kill a lot of people if you don't know what you're doing, and if you're just picking the next best thing. What? Yeah. So another job I'd say is probably uh, first responders, probably, because you want someone who's qualified for the job, with experience and is well trained, who has done everything in the past to be qualified for a first responder, because they are the first at the scene. They're the ones dealing with situations like fires or criminal activity or medical issues. So if you're there are people who are saving lives, and again, another job that you're playing with people's lives. So I'd say making sure that someone who is fit for the job is the person that you'd want to pick, and not just the very next person. So I'd say the least appropriate jobs that would require, or that satisfying would not be the best strategy, would probably be jobs that require, or that include people's lives. If you're Because you need to be pinpoint, you need to be accurate with whatever you're doing in those kinds of jobs. If you're not, you're going to be essentially playing with people's lives, and you don't want that in these kind of occupations. So, number three, discuss the relationship between creativity and innovation. Is it possible to innovate without creativity? Is it possible to create without innovating? Defend your position. So, I'd say creativity and innovation probably work hand in hand together. Without innovation, you're not going to have much creativity, and you know, and without any creativity, you're not going to have innovation. So, uh, like maybe art, you're going to have, in order to create new pieces of art, you're going to need to have innovation. Like you could argue that if an artist just was innovative once with their style, then they could just make whatever they want for the rest of their lives. But I'd say in order to an organization to move up or develop more, you're going to need innovation and creativity. You can't just leave one behind and say you don't need it. So is it possible to innovate without creativity? I don't think so, because of that. So yeah, because of course they work hand in hand together. So, and is it possible to create without innovating? So I don't think so. Again, because of them being working together so well. So yeah, another probably like not just like art, probably like jobs as well. I mean, if someone's not like innovating in their job, especially in jobs that need to be developing, like technology, or uh, maybe even like NASA or SpaceX, we're not going to be developing. There's no innovation or creativity, or innovation. There's going to be no creativity. If we're not, innovating or creating new ideas, we're not really going to develop in the world, or develop in our jobs. So yeah, um, yeah, I think that would be it. So four, under what organizational circumstances would you choose a job candidate who exhibited creative potential but lacked practice creativity over a candidate who had worked in an environment where opportunities to develop practice creativity were extensive, but exhibited less creative potential? Under what organizational circumstances would you choose a candidate with obvious practice creativity skills over someone with creative potential? So, um, A job that I would say, or circumstances, a job candidate who exhibit creative potential but lack practice creative experience is probably jobs you'd want people to be creative in jobs with like technology or engineering or art, because you want people to be creative. You want to have ideas where people are thinking of new ideas every day, maybe even like marketing. You want to have people who are creative. You don't want to have someone who's just, there to type in a box or fill in the numbers or just show up on time. You want to have people who are here to work and create new ideas. Like even like entertainment, like, or computers, technology, clothing. You want to have brand new ideas. You can't just keep making the same sweatpants or hoodies every year. You need to have something creative for people to buy. um yeah, same with like movies. Even if they are a little like samey every year, but you want to have like newer ideas for people be um to be enthralled in. So yeah, a maybe even cars too. Where cars are always developing every year. They're getting, like Tesla. We have electric cars now. We have, so like, yeah, any jobs that really require you to be creative. It's most jobs now, but like maybe uh, just like, but jobs like accounting, you'd probably want to have someone who's just there to punch numbers, or maybe uh, lawyers, or maybe lawyers can be creative, but yeah, just any jobs that really require more development is what I'm saying. So, under what organizational circumstances would you choose a candidate with obvious practice creativity skills over someone with creative potential? So, thinking, so jobs that probably would require a candidate with obvious practice creatives. So probably a job like any government job, like senators or just presidents. Jobs where rules are a lot more rigid, and you'd want to have people who are there to understand the rules and who know it, and not someone who is overly creative with their ideas. Because you need to have someone who knows the rules, because that's the government. They need to have rules in place and they need to follow those rules. So if there's someone who's all willy nilly with their ideas, they're gonna have a lot of bad things happen. Another circumstance or job, probably medical circumstances. So you'd want to have someone who's, uh, you know, obviously well practiced in their job. You're gonna have someone who's uh, not very well, like not creative, but well experienced with their job, because you want to have someone who's good at following the procedures and rules, and yeah, just jobs like that. So all in all, I would say jobs that require uh, exhibited creative potential would be jobs that are need constant development. Tech, clothing, entertainment, um, or marketing. You want to have someone who's able to think of new ideas on the spot, or just have new ideas ready for the future of the organization. And then uh, circumstances with obvious practice creativity skills, you'd want to have someone who's experienced with like government, medical, or numbers. So like accounting, you'd want to have someone who's probably experienced with those kinds of things, and you want a little less creativity and a lot uh, more experience. So yeah, another prob another probably idea for more experience probably would be uh, maybe HR, like human resources, just jobs that really require you to follow the rules uh, with more experience. So maybe even teaching. Well, you'd want to be creative in teaching. So yeah, I think that'd be it. So just, job with, you need creativity for jobs that need development, and then for less creativity, you'd want to have jobs for more rules or regulations, or more rigid with their uh, circumstances. Thank you.